Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another video of Salesforce Makes Sense. This is Himanshu and we are continuing our journey of understanding Apex through our Salesforce Developer Masterclass. Right? In our previous sessions, we talked about governor limits and then we understood debug logs, and I hope most of you attended and attempted the governor limits quiz. Alright, so moving forward, we are trying to now cover something that's custom metadata, custom settings, and custom labels. These are nothing but helping hands that help you leverage platform capabilities to store information or dynamically configure them and then leverage them in your business processes or in your Apex code. Right? So these are the three things: this custom labels, custom settings, and custom metadata. Right? And very often you get to hear this from people: why can't we use custom metadata? Why didn't you not use custom settings for this configuration? Can we make this dynamic? Can we make this configurable by using some custom metadata or settings? Why have you not stored this information because it's a static information? Why have you not stored this in a custom label? Right? So all of those kind of discussions that happen, I want you to be confident enough to suggest and even prove people wrong that okay, this is probably the right approach, this is the way you can use it, or maybe this is why you should use it, or you can even suggest, right? Let's go ahead and try using labels here, or maybe let's try to use custom settings here. So until and unless you don't know what these three things do, you'll not be able to do that. But the idea is, with this tutorial, let's try to figure out the basics and let's try to understand where each of these come in handy. Okay, let's start with custom metadata. So custom metadata, if I take you to the Salesforce org, let's go to the Salesforce org. So if I take you to the Salesforce org, if you type on the quick find box custom metadata, that shows up here, custom metadata types, right? Similarly, if you type custom settings, even that shows up here. And if you type custom labels, even that shows up here. So everything is on your quick find box. We'll start with metadata. So if I go to custom metadata types and I open this right here, what this tells you is that custom metadata types enable you to create your own setup objects whose records are metadata rather than data. So first of all, what is metadata and what is data? Right? So any information that is business oriented or provides information about the actual thing, like for example, let's say you have a database of all the finance records, or let's say it's your payslip, each month payslip, right? So that payslip gives the data of what your salary is and how it is broken down, right? Now, if you wanted to take a look at what exactly every component means in that payslip, that is basically you are trying to retrieve or understand data about your data, which is called metadata. So data about your data is metadata in very simple language, and this is your one-line bookish language, everywhere it is mentioned. But I hope you understand the payslip concept. You get a payslip, right? And you have HRA, you have basic salary, you have variable component, right? And numbers are given them there. So what's the purpose of the payslip? To show you that this is the amount that will be credited to your account, correct? So that's your data, that's your primary data. But if you want to take a look at information regarding each elements of the data that it presents to you, for example, you want to see how the basic salary has been calculated, what are the policies behind the basic salary, where is the variable component getting derived from, what are you essentially trying to do? You are trying to extract more data about the data that's present. That's metadata. That's basically metadata. All right, so I am Himanshu. I am probably 5'8". This is my weight. This is my height. The color of my eyes is this. But then if I want to take a look at the DNA of me, right? That would be looking at the genome. That would basically be data about data. Basically, okay, this is on the exterior, but what's in the interior, right? So that's you wanting to look at the data about data, right? That's metadata. So any scenarios where you have a requirement that you need to store metadata information is where you would use custom metadata. All right, it might not be customer facing, it might not be business facing, but it might be relevant and useful when you are trying to pitch or show that data to the customer. All right, we'll look at a use case and that will give you a better idea, but I hope the examples are clear. All right, now if I go ahead and click on the new custom metadata type, it is very similar to how we create objects in Salesforce, right? So I'll just go ahead and try to create this here. Before creating it here, I want to start with a use case and that will give you a better picture. So our use case is that you are building a multilingual, multi-regional inventory system. and you want to store and leverage pricing for different regions. Now what does this mean? This means you have a business, you have an inventory, and that is basically being shipped to India, US, UK, Europe, and Germany, or maybe let's say UAE, right? So will the pricing structure be same for all regions and all countries? No, it won't be the same, right? So let's say you have a product that's called product A, and that product A is priced at $25, correct? But dollars is for US currency, right? How would you price it in euro? How would you price it in dirhams? How would you price it in INR? How would you price it in Singapore dollar? How would you price it in, let's say, any other currency? Will it be the same? No, there would be a price parity, right? So if you had to store this data about your primary data, which is your price, you'd have to create a custom metadata. Does that make sense? So what are you essentially trying to do? You're trying to ensure that you have some metadata, some repository, some master information about your product pricing. And that is why you will create a custom metadata. So what will we do here? We'll say inventory pricing is the name of our custom metadata, right? Plural label would be inventory pricing only. Let's keep it the same. It starts with a vowel sound, and I'll just go ahead and say that this should be visible to all the Apex code and APIs. Okay, if you want to limit it, you can actually limit it by saying only Apex code in the same namespace, which is basically our current namespace. Only Apex code in the same namespace. Okay, these are two different things. One is the same managed package and the same namespace. So same namespace is our current namespace, and same managed package namespace comes as part of your installing any managed package. And all Apex code and all APIs, basically, then you have accessibility of this particular metadata across your org, and any and everything can access it. Okay, for now let's not go into the visibility. That's fine. I can just go ahead and say save with all option. Okay. Now, you see, this looks very similar to how your custom objects are created, right? And it has some standard fields like you have in objects. Yes. Now, there are 2 or 3 interesting things I would like you to know. Not many people talk about it. Not many people know it. They just use it, but it's very good information. First thing is, if you see every time you create an object, you get a name, correct? But here you have a name and you have a label. Correct? And if you see the API names, the API name is called master label and it is called developer name. Now, any metadata in the system always has the master label and developer name as the API names. If you are querying any object in Salesforce and you are querying the master label and the developer name, you can kind of guess I'm querying the metadata information. Okay? So you have to ensure that you understand, okay, why is this a master label and developer name? This is how Salesforce has segregated that this is basically the structure of a metadata kind of a information. Okay, so you can say select ID, master label, developer name from inventory pricing. Now, that's how you normally query, right? But when you query a custom object, you say ABC __ C. However, to isolate and to create a segregation of custom object versus custom metadata, API name of a custom metadata ends with __ C, MDT. So this tells you, oh, okay, I'm querying a metadata. Anywhere you see this in the code, you'll see, okay, this is a metadata query. It's not a, what do you call it? It's not a object query. It's a metadata query, right? So this is your standard fields. This is the object information, and you have a layout, page layout. You can add validation rules. You can add custom fields. So you can add custom fields. Now, what is the limitation? When you click on the new button for custom fields, you see that you don't have all the options available like you have in custom objects. Master lookup, roll-up summary, lookup relationship, rich text area, formula. Those things are not available here. So there are a limited set of custom data types that you can create as part of custom metadata. Okay, but this is all you have. All right. So if someone asks you, can we create a formula data type in custom metadata? No, we cannot. See, the list does not let you. Can we do a multi-select pick list? No, you cannot. It's only pick list. Okay. Can I link multiple metadata objects together like we link objects? Right? There is a parent object A, there is a child object B. Can I do similar thing in metadata? Yes, I can do that by creating a metadata relationship. So metadata relationship is similar to how you do a lookup or a master detail in Salesforce using custom objects. But here, if you want to link two metadata types, you have to use a custom metadata relationship. Okay, cool. let's cancel this from here and let's take a look at our use case again. So what we want to do is we basically want to ensure that we have a multilingual, multi-regional inventory, right? So this is basically inventory pricing. So let me just go ahead and say, I'll create some fields here. Okay. We already have the label in the developer name where we can store the name, but let's do something like this, pick list. So I'll just create a region pick list. Okay, and here I'll just give some regions: US, UK, EU, AE, IN. I think that should be fine. Okay, and this is the list, and I can display them alphabetically. That is fine, and I can just simply say that it is always required when creating a record. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and say next. That's my new field, and I want to create one more field, and I want to create a pricing, right? So I'll just go ahead and say choose a currency, but is currency available? See, currency is also not available. So I'll just go ahead and choose a number. Okay, so let's say we want to store, let's say the currency information or probably some pricing, right? So I'll just go ahead and say this is, sorry, this should be the label, right? So I'll say pricing parity. All right, and this can have decimal, so I'll just say 16,2. Alright, so I've created my second field, and that is 16,2, and this is also always required, and I'll say next, and I'll say save. Okay, now your object has been created, meaning your custom metadata has been created. Now to create records, you don't get that same tab concept. You can create the records by clicking on the manage button here. So what will you do? You'll type in metadata, you'll open this tab, and when you open this tab, you'll see the list of all the custom metadata types. Right now there are 2. This is the one that we just created, right? We'll open this inventory pricing. It will give you the information about what are the fields, what is the page layout, basically the metadata information, right? And if you want to see the actual records of the metadata, you need to click on the manage inventory pricing. Okay, I know this is not developer concept, but I'm just setting this up and giving a clear context so that when we use it in our Apex code, it will be very clear. Okay, now if you click on the new button here, you can actually create a metadata record. See this one. So I'll call it United Arab Emirates. This is the API name, which is nothing but the developer name. The region will be AE, and the pricing parity will be 25. I'll say save and new. I'll say United States. This will be US, and the pricing parity will be 12. Right? It's just a pricing parity is just a parameter I've added. That don't worry about what logic it is or what does it mean. It's okay. We don't need to worry about it. I'll just say Europe, and this would basically be 38, right? Save and new. Let's do India, and this would be 18. Okay. So I've created 4 records. This is basically 4 records, right? And this is how your records have been created. If I go to the list again, you see the 4 records have been created, and you can create a list view, right? You can create a list view here. So I'll say all records, and instead of just seeing these 3 parameters, I want to see my custom fields also, right? So I'll just go ahead and say save. So now this is the list view that will show me, okay, this is the pricing parity, this is the region, this is the inventory pricing, this is the label. Cool. Setup is done. Okay, and we understand what is custom metadata. Now, if you had to use it in Apex, how would you do it? That's the idea, right? So now let's go to VS Code and let's create our new Apex class. So I'll call it explore custom metadata. All right, and here I'll create a method. And I want to retrieve the pricing parity for a specific region. So this method will accept a region name. Okay, and then based on the region name, I want to get a priority. Not a priority, I want to get the pricing parity. Okay, so what should it return? It should return a decimal value, right? Pricing parity index. All right, and this is what it should return. And the return type should also be decimal. So our stub is created. I'll get rid of the with sharing for now, not needed for now. Let's ignore, and that's all I think, and I can just go ahead and say deploy. All right, this is not deployed. I need to put a semicolon here, semicolon added, deploy. Let's see if this gets deployed now. Deployed, fine, right? Okay, so the class is created. Now I want to access my metadata. Now let's write it in English first. Okay, so what do I need to do? I first of all need to access my metadata. When I access my metadata records, I want to retrieve or fetch the pricing parity field value for the record whose region name is matching my method parameter. Correct? Is this English fine? Yes, it's fine, right? So to be able to do this, what do I need to do? I simply can query. I can query inventory pricing metadata. The only thing is, before doing it here, let's do it on the developer console so that I can show you how it looks like. Okay, so just open the developer console. Let's go ahead and type it out. I'll just select ID from. Now you want to know what is the object name, right? What is the metadata name? I think I know, but I'll just quickly show you. Before doing that, let me just copy it from here. I have this tab opened here. I'll just put it here. Okay, so now what is this metadata? I'll go back to metadata and I'll just say custom metadata types. I'll click on the inventory pricing, or you see the API name is available here. So I can copy it from here. What is another way of doing it? I can simply say Control Shift O or Command Shift O, and I can type MDT here, right? But I have to put a star here. So then this is showing me all the metadata records. See, this is a good way of looking at it. MDT, right? So you can see all the metadata. Now I know it's inventory pricing. I'll just double click it and I can see all the fields. Now I can create a query from here. So I'll say ID developer name, master label, region, pricing. Let's query all of these fields and say execute. So you see 4 records are coming up exactly how we wanted. Awesome. I'll take this query, and now what I can do is just if you are, I think you already know what it is, right? So what you need to do here is you basically need to take the region name from your method and you need to match it with basically the region here. Correct? So your query can basically be select ID, developer name, all of this information from inventory pricing where region equals the region name that the user has input. Correct? And ideally you should always receive one row, because you will only have one region, so you will always have one record. Correct? So I can put a limit 1 here, but I'll still ensure that my instance variable is bulkified. What does that mean? That means I'll create a list variable of inventory pricing. Correct? Inventory pricing metadata. I'll call the variable pricing metadata, pricing MDT, or let's say pricing MDT. This is fine, right? Now I have a query written, right? Now what can this query do? This query will either return me something or it will not. So if it returns me something, meaning the size is equal to 1, it should always return 1 record. If it does not, don't do anything. Correct? Return empty or null value of this particular decimal variable. But if it does return something, then can I say that the pricing parity index is equal to pricing metadata of 0, meaning the 0th element, because the size is 1, dot pricing parity, the custom field value. Done. Right? So this is how you're able to access your metadata, query on it, use your where clause similar to how you do a SOQL query, and you can actually access the field values. If I try to deploy this, first of all, let's see if it gets deployed or not. Deployed, fine. And now we'll try to access and exploit this particular class, right? So if I just go ahead and say explore custom metadata dot retrieve pricing parity, and I want to say I want to retrieve it for India, and I go ahead and say execute. So it should return me for India, it should return how much? Let's go ahead and double check. For India it should return 18. So let's see if the decimal value is 18 or not. It's 18. Okay, what happens if I go ahead and type India, which is not available in the metadata? If I execute this, it does not return really anything. It is null. Why? Because it did not go inside that if condition. Okay, one more thing that we can do is we can always do a region is blank check. So we only want to run this if string dot is not blank region name, meaning region name has a value, or else why to waste the SOQL query, right? We just understood the governor limits. So let's not do it. If the region information is blank, I don't want to waste my query. Perfect. So a very simple use case and a very easy to understand thing. It's not complex. It's just about when you use custom metadata, this is how you'd use it. As simple as that. Now, before jumping into custom settings, one more thing. Now see, the key benefit with custom metadata is that it is highly configurable. See, because you can configure it based on your requirement, right? Today you want to do a region based information, tomorrow you want to do a language based information, you want to introduce another field, you want to bifurcate based on some scenarios. All of that can be configured. And what does that mean? You don't have to modify your code to handle different scenarios. Correct? Your custom metadata is capable enough to keep the configuration there and handle different scenarios of the business process. So that's why it's highly configurable, and anything that you need to make configurable and you don't want to touch and deploy the code every time, you can move that particular framework to custom metadata and leverage this capability to in your Apex code to solve the problem. Okay. The other key benefit is custom metadata is very easy to migrate to higher orgs, like from sandbox, from dev to UAT to SIT to pre-prod or whatever to production. You can easily deploy it. Right? Now, when I say you can easily do it, what do I mean? See, the inventory pricing is here, right? The issue is if I go to VS Code, it's not the issue, sorry. I want to basically, the use case is that you want to deploy the custom metadata and you also want to deploy the records created in custom metadata, correct? Because then you don't want to create these records manually every time, right? Once, if you have created, is there a way to extract it and deploy it all together? Yes, there is a way. So if you go to VS Code and if you go to, let's say, the org browser, here you will see a section that's called custom metadata types. Custom metadata, right? So under this, if you see, this custom metadata types is nothing but all your records. And if you notice, all the 4 records of inventory pricing are available here. Okay. So that's your record, and if you want to extract the object, meaning the metadata information, so you have to go to custom objects. So if you go to custom objects, you see custom object is available, standard object is available, and similarly under I, you will see metadata object is also available. So if you just retrieve this entire thing, the fields, the list view, the layout, everything will come. So it's so easy to then create a package.xml and deploy it, or you can even use your workbench. All right, so it's very easy to deploy. The good part is that the records also come, right? So the records are also here, which is amazing, right? If there are 1,000 records, then you cannot manually do it, right? So you have to do it through some automation, and this is a good way to start. You can just get this metadata records, download it. You can commit it in your release pipelines, and you can also create a package.xml with this records and deploy. Simple. Alright, so that was custom metadata. To be honest, I wanted to do custom metadata, custom settings and custom labels in one video, but looks like they are going to be 3 different videos. Alright, so let's look at custom settings in the next video, and that should create a good understanding of where to use custom metadata versus where to use custom settings, and then we'll also look at custom labels. Alright, cool. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.